on with the event, we have Samip Shah. He is a software engineer and a business development executive working with Hoiio Private Limited in Singapore. Can we have him on with us? I think he's online.
Hear me? Hello, can you hear me?
Yep, Samip is here. Hi, Samip.
Hi.
Yes, you're very much audible. Am I?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I'm doing wonderful. How are you?
Very good. Yeah, I'm doing good.
Thank you. Well, it's just something I picked up. I really like the t-shirt, so I got. Yeah. So a little bit about Samip. He works as a business development executive, but he's also a React Native developer at the same time, which is a very unique combination for a profession. He also loves to meditate, and he also loves to travel. I don't know how many places he has traveled to, so I'd let him talk about that. So Samip, if we will share the screen, and if you can put on your presentation, we will continue.
Yeah, can you see my presentation? Can you see my
yes,
screen?
we can.
Okay.
Yes, we can. So Samip, I will leave you to your presentation. Take it away. Thank you very much, and all the best.
Thanks, Digvijay. Hello, all. Nice to meet you. I'm a bit nervous because after a long time, I'm doing a technical presentation. But I love Redux Toolkit. So this is about Redux Toolkit. Redux Toolkit is one of those libraries which you first see. For me, I used to wake up at night and dream of all the refactoring that I'm going to do with it. So that's why I thought I will share today. We have only 15 minutes, and I did a pre-demo with my friend. I wanted to do like a code sharing and a screen sharing live demo, but we could not fit it in. And unfortunately, I did not make such cool like animations like Vinay. I think he showed it very well with a live demo, but I'm just going to stick to the PPT and some code. So basically, Redux to today's presentation, right? Probably there is three kind of people here. People who haven't used Redux or new to Redux, probably this is not the best presentation for them. Secondly, people who using Redux but are not using Redux Toolkit, and I think they will get a lot of value from it. And lastly, it's people who already know Redux Toolkit. In that case, please stand by and let me know your thoughts and your opinions and your feedbacks. So let's start. Today, I'm going to actually divide into three parts. First is introduction. Second is async calls with create async Thunk. And then something called createEntityAdapter, which actually is very cool. Maybe I should give an introduction first. So Redux Toolkit, right, is a package built by the maintainers and developers of Redux itself. And because Redux and React Native are so unopinionated, sometimes you find people, especially when you work in a team, writing all sorts of different methods of writing. So Redux Toolkit is slightly opinionated. It provides a way to do things. Secondly, it also reduces a lot of boilerplate code, which is what I really like about it. And also, it reduces a lot of complexities and provides some helper functions, which we're gonna talk about today. Basically, it's just a wrapper built on top of Redux. Basically, it's Redux, and it just helps you write code easily and faster, basically. So the main benefits of using Redux Toolkit, right, is it automatically creates your action types and reducers. I'll show what that is later. And because it integrates with something called Immer.js, it helps us write mutative code, because if you know Redux, you have to make sure you use object assign or spread operator and things like that to make sure you never mutate your code in your reducer. Second, it allows us some functions to easily perform async calls with Redux Thunk, and also perform create, read, update, delete operations on your data, and also provides you some selectors to display data in your component. So before, right, I used to use other different libraries like Normalizer, Immer.js, Reselect to do all these things. But with Redux Toolkit, right, I found that it's all in one package. So let's get to the code. So basically, a quick example, right, is without Redux Toolkit, right, first you create your action types, uh, and then you dispatch your, you create your actions, and then you write your reducer. So here, right, for me, always writing increment is equal to increment and handling mutative code. It's a lot of boilerplate, and for me, I'm a lazy guy, so it's a lot of repetitive work. So with Redux Toolkit, right, they provide a function called create slice. Basically, a slice is something like a piece of the state, or you can call it like a reducer, which accepts values for slice name, initial state, and allows you to define the reducers inside the create slice. So instead of having to explicitly specify types and then doing a switch case for all your types, with Redux Toolkit, right, you can basically create action types. In this case, it's increment, decrement, increment by value, sorry, increment by amount, and the name of the reducer case is the same as the name of the action, which you can see right at the bottom. I think a little bit is cut off here. Sorry about that. So it's counter slice dot actions. So basically, you okay, oops, you can export these actions from the account from the slice dot actions object, and then use them in your component directly. So basically, if I dispatch increment action, it will fire this reducer. So you can see how it makes it easier to code. Second, I'm going to move on to something called create async thunk. Basically, this is related to Redux Thunk. We usually use Redux Thunk or Redux Saga to get API to get data from the API. And with Thunk, right, this is an example of how you use Redux Thunk to get data from an API. For example, first you create your actions, again you dispatch the loading state, you get your data from the API using fetch or Axios, and then you dispatch the success method, success call, and then you catch in terms of error. If there is a error is thrown, you dispatch the failed action. So with this, right, and the data in the reducer, again you use pred operator or object.assign to make sure that you don't mutate your code. So let's see how we would do the same thing with Redux Toolkit. So we use a Redux Toolkit method called create async thunk, which actually comes out of the box with Redux Toolkit, and basically it accepts two arguments. First is the name, and the second is the callback function where you do your logic to fetch your data and so forth. Interesting thing here, if you see, is there is no actions fired for loading state, success state, or catching an error. So the benefit of Redux Toolkit create async thunk, right, is it actually passes these actions automatically based on the state of the thunk. So when the thunk starts, it automatically passes what is called a dot pending action. So basically, how you would do this is in your create slice, you have an extra key for extra reducers, and you just pass actions with the names fetch the name of your thunk and dot pending, dot fulfilled, and dot rejected. These are like standard nomenclature, so you need to use that. But basically, inside that, right, you can do all the updates to your store that you want. There is one more thing I have used here is entity adapter, which I will share what it is next. But basically, what you need to do here is just update the data in your store, however you do it. And another thing that you notice, same as the previous one, is we don't use spread operator or object.assign because we're using something called emmer.js under the hood. Redux Toolkit uses it under the hood. So you just write mutative code. You don't need to worry about writing immutable code and so forth. So you just write state.variable is equal to value, basically. And then yeah, so this is create async thunk. The callback, right, accepts on the left, the callback will accept two arguments, data, which is actually whatever data you want to pass to this thunk, whether it's like, For example, if it's a login form, it's going to be your username and password. And second thing is Thunk API, which exposes all the, is an object containing all the parameters which is normally if you want something other action or get state to access the store. And another interesting thing is reject with value. This is used when actually you want to catch an error with a specific, let's say a specific error code. Yeah, so this is the create async Thunk API. Ideally, I would like to stop for questions, but I think the questions are at the end. So I will just continue. The last thing that I want to share, right, is createEntityAdapter. CreateEntityAdapter is a function that provides you with a set of pre-built helpers and selectors for performing create, read, update, delete operations on a normalized state structure. What is a normalized state structure? So normalized state structure usually, right, when the data is written from the API, and if the data is too deeply nested, because Redux recommends you to have as shallow a state shape as possible in your store. So createEntityAdapter will allow you to accept the data and save it as an array of IDs and a lookup table, which is an object of all your objects, this data. So let's see how it looks. Basically, you just use the createEntityAdapter from Redux Toolkit, and then in your reducer, this is the adapter that we have created, list adapter. It provides you with certain functions. One of them is set all. So basically, we return the response of data promise, response of data from our async Thunk. So basically, we just use the action.payload.data, and you use the set all helper method. And set all is, for example, set all is a method which sets all the entities you receive. So basically, there is some CRUD functions which actually allow you to easily add, remove, upsert, edit, add multiple, remove multiple elements from your state. So this is especially helpful when you're working with a list, like a list of users, or you want to add one user, or you want to go to next page. So instead of, I hope you can see how instead of writing too much complex logic, these helper functions, right, really help you to write code much faster. And because they come out of the box, you will save a lot of headache with debugging it and finding bugs and so forth. So this is an example of how the normalized data is saved using set all. Is when let's say we receive seven elements from the server. You can see it's an array of IDs and object of entities, which is actually your data. Now, list adapter also allows you a way to sort your data. If let's say you want to sort by first name or last name, if you don't sort it, it just saves it in the way it receives from the API. And if your ID field is different from .id, you can specify it also. So this is saving data in your state. This is all about saving data in your state in your reducer. The second benefit of, sorry, I think I tilted my screen. The second benefit of entity adapter, right, is, let me just see if my screen is showing correct. Okay, sorry. Sorry, I was just checking if my screen is showing correctly. The second benefit of createEntityAdapter is it exposes certain selector functions. Now, what is a selector? Basically, right, when you use you display your data on your mobile with React Native, you usually use a component like flat list or section list to display the data. And all these components typically take in an array, object array of the data to display. But just now, we actually saved it in not an object array. We saved it in an object, entities object. So why we did it? Because this is the recommended way. Second, it actually allows us to access any element quickly. Like let's say you want ID 7. Because the key of the entities object is always the ID, you can easily access it by O notation 1 speed instead of having to look through all. But when you want to display it as a list, you need to select, that is, get the array list of all your objects. So for this, createEntityAdapter offers some selector functions. The most commonly used will be select all, whereby it maps over all the state.ids and then returns them in the same order. So basically, an example would be in your map state to props. You can just use the selector, select all, and display all the elements. Another options is, oops, so sorry. You can select only the IDs. You can select by ID. You can get the total number and so forth. So this is the benefit of entity adapter. One, it helps you easily, it offers some crude functions to easily save your data in your reducer without having to write all this complex logic yourself. Second is it exposes some selector functions, which actually allows you to display them in your component. The last thing I want to say about this selector function is they're actually, I think, under the hood using this library called reselect.js, which what it does, it memoizes the data. What does it mean? It means that if the data doesn't change and your component re-renders, it does a shallow comparison with the previous data, and if it's unchanged, then it just returns the same data. So what it means is, because whenever if you're into performance, you have to be very sure that your props don't change, otherwise your component will re-render. But because the Redux toolkit uses reselect.js under the hood, basically, unless the props really change, I mean, unless the data really changes, the selector function is actually technically not recalculated, which will save you rendering time on your screen. So that's actually about Redux toolkit. I wanted to show a demo, but I don't think we have time. To recap the main benefits, right? We can auto create action types and reducers and write mutative code. Basically, you don't need to create. Oops. Sorry, I'm so sorry to go back, but I want to show this. Basically, you don't need to create the action types again, and you don't need to create reducers for them, because it automatically creates for you. Second is, you can use immer.js to write mutative code. You can easily create thunks, and it auto creates your extra reducers, which is your loading, success, and fail cases. It allows you to perform crude operations on your data, so you can save it in whatever kind of data you want, whether it's one or all or edit. And lastly, it allows you to select the data to display in your component. I want to give a shout out to reactFlux Redux community, because this is a very helpful community. Sometimes I go on there. If you are on there also, hello. And you can ask all your questions. In fact, the developers of Redux and Redux Toolkit actively answer your questions there, so I'm grateful for them. And I have added some references for the libraries that I mentioned. And keep in touch. If you have any collaboration opportunities, you feel free to get back to me. So that's all from my side. Any questions?
Thank you very much, Samip, for all that informative information that you provided. We actually have a ton of questions here for. The first one is from Hemant, and he asks, which middleware do you prefer, Thunk or Saga? And does Redux Toolkit provide Saga, like create async Thunk?
Redux Toolkit allows you to add your custom middleware, including Redux Saga, but it does not provide a helper function for Redux Saga like create async Thunk. So you can still write sagas using Redux Toolkit. It's just that it's just like a normal sagas. There is no helper functions, but yes, it's supported. Secondly, personally, I think Redux Saga has a lot of features, and it's very easy to test it. But for me, I still prefer Thunks, mainly because Redux Toolkit offers create async Thunk, and usually, unless you are working on a very big app, it's actually good enough.
Right. I hope that answers your question, Hemant. We have another question from Rohit. Rohit asks, do we have an option to inject reducers at runtime?
Sorry, can you repeat again?
Yes, Rohit is asking, do we have an option to inject reducers at runtime?
Sorry, I don't know what that means. Apologies, I can't answer.
Okay, okay, okay. The other question that we have is from Rashmi. She asks, how do I share between two reducers? Do I have to use combined reducers?
I think she's talking about um, how to combine the reducers. And yes, you can. You don't need to use combined reducers. Actually, combine it. You can use something called create store, which Redux Toolkit offers, which will combine your reducers. And if you want to share data between reducers, you can use the get state helper function inside your Thunk.
Right. I hope that answers your question, Rashmi. We have one last question from just another gamer. He mentions that Redux Toolkit might really help him reduce extra coding for maintaining state. But is the learning curve a little tough? Do you have any recommendations for getting started with this toolkit?
Actually, the official docs which I have linked are very good. I recommend you to check them out, and they're quite easy. Actually, the reason I shared this presentation today is because Redux Toolkit is kind of new. There is not so many in-depth tutorials about it, especially create entity adapter and create async thunk. So you might have to play around with yourself. But I think the learning curve is very easy, and it's for me it's very exciting because I like Redux. So I think it will be fun. I do plan to write some tutorials on it to make it easy, but there is no due date on it yet.
Well, I hope those words make it give just another gamer some hope to start with this toolkit. Um, I guess that's all we have for now. Thank you very much for your time, Samip, and thank you for sharing everything that you had.
Thank you
It
so
was
much,
lovely to have you.
Native Base Geeky Ants. Actually, yeah, I just want to say I use Native Base a lot, especially the toast and the card, all these components. So I use it in production apps. So you the guys have done a great job. So thanks a lot.
Well, it makes me happy to hear that, and Sanket must be ecstatic right now. Anyway, so we will continue with the show. Thank you very much, Samip. Thank you for being here.
Bye.